I've spent 20 years exposing other people's lies. 20 years hunting through spreadsheets and bank statements, following paper trails that lead to boardroom conspiracies and million-dollar fraud schemes. I'm Daniel Mercer, forensic accountant, and I'm damn good at what I do. I can spot a discrepancy from 3 columns away. I can smell financial fraud like smoke from a burning building. The irony isn't lost on me that the biggest lie I ever encountered was sleeping in my bed every night. At 41, I thought I had my life figured out. 6-foot frame, graying at the temples, pulling in $125,000 annually from my practice. Not bad for a kid from Newark who put himself through Rutgers on student loans and determination. I'm methodical to a fault. My friends joke that I alphabetize my sock drawer. When your job is finding needles in financial haystacks, organization becomes religion. I met Victoria 9 years ago at my college roommate's wedding. She was seated at table 6, wearing this emerald green dress that made her auburn hair look like fire in the candlelight. Most wedding conversations are small talk, but Victoria was different. When I mentioned I was a forensic accountant, instead of the usual glazed-over politeness, she leaned forward. "So you're like a financial detective?" she asked, genuine interest sparkling in her gray-green eyes. "Something like that," I replied. "I follow money trails to catch white-collar criminals." "That's fascinating," she responded. "I work in tech, financial software for startups. I've always been interested in how people manipulate systems." We talked for 3 hours. She asked intelligent questions about my work, shared stories about startup culture, and when she laughed at my terrible jokes, it felt real. By the end of the night, I was completely hooked. The first 5 years of our marriage were everything I'd hoped for. Victoria left her tech startup job 4 years ago after burnout. 18-hour days had left her exhausted. I was happy to support her taking time off. We had savings, my practice was growing, and honestly, I loved coming home to someone who wanted to hear about my day. We bought the colonial house in Westfield 3 years ago. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, the kind of place I'd dreamed about as a kid. Victoria threw herself into making it perfect. Farmers market flowers every Sunday, dinner parties with coordinated place settings, a herb garden that actually produced edible food. She joined yoga classes, started attending charity galas, discovered she had an eye for art. It was a good life. Maybe not passionate movie romance good, but solid, comfortable, built on trust and mutual respect. I trusted her completely. Looking back, maybe too completely. My work requires 60-hour weeks regularly, sometimes 80 when I'm deep in complex cases. Last month, I spent 3 weeks documenting an embezzlement scheme that cost a pension fund $2.3 million. The perpetrator was the CFO's trusted assistant, someone who'd worked there 15 years, attended company picnics, sent birthday cards to colleagues' children. The day I testified, putting her away for 7 years, I came home exhausted. Victoria was in the kitchen, uncorking a bottle of the Cabernet we save for special occasions. "Rough day?" she asked, moving behind me to massage my shoulders. "Long day. Good outcome, though," I answered. "The jury convicted on all counts." "Of course they did," she said, kissing the top of my head. "You always catch the bad guys. That's what you do." I remember thinking how lucky I was. Someone who understood my work, who celebrated my victories, who made our house feel like home. I should have paid attention to the details. That's what I tell clients. The truth always lives in the details. The small inconsistencies, the numbers that don't add up. Victoria's phone had become permanent. She'd scroll during dinner, smile at screens in ways that never included me. When I asked who she was texting, always the same answer. "Just the girls from yoga," she would say. There were other things. Credit card charges I didn't recognize. Victoria claiming she'd spent $400 at Nordstrom when she never brought home shopping bags. Yoga classes running longer. Business calls in other rooms about investments. When I asked, Victoria had reasonable explanations for everything. All perfectly logical. All completely believable. All, as I would discover, complete lies. I've learned that the truth always lives in the details, the small inconsistencies, the numbers that don't add up. I just never thought I'd need to apply that principle to my own wife. I should have. The call came at 1:15 p.m. Tuesday, just as I was reviewing deposition notes. "Mr. Mercer, this is Jennifer from Lee, Blake & Associates," the voice said. "I'm calling about the Hartwell deposition scheduled for this afternoon." I switched the phone to my other ear. "What about it?" I asked. "Mr. Blake's mother was just rushed to the hospital with a heart attack," she explained. "He needs to postpone until next week. I'm so sorry for the short notice." "Of course," I replied. "I hope she's okay. Can we reschedule for Thursday?" "I'll check his calendar and get back to you," she promised. After hanging up, I stared at my cleared calendar. 3 free hours on a Tuesday afternoon, a gift I hadn't received in months. I could tackle the Bennett case or catch up on paperwork. Instead, I found myself thinking about Victoria, about that Italian restaurant on Elm Street, about the last time we'd had a spontaneous afternoon together. 20 minutes later, I was driving through our tree-lined neighborhood with an actual smile. Maybe we could take a walk through the park. Maybe we could sit on the deck and talk like we used to. I pulled into our driveway at 1:45, noting Victoria's car in its usual spot. The house looked peaceful in afternoon sunlight. Freshly painted shutters, rose bushes she'd planted last spring finally blooming. Home. I unlocked the front door quietly, not wanting to startle her. The house felt still, that particular quality of midday silence when everything inside is suspended in calm. That's when I heard her voice. It was drifting down from the second floor, from the direction of what we called the office, the smallest bedroom Victoria had converted into her personal space. She'd claimed she used it for online art courses and yoga videos. Her voice had a tone I recognized: intimate, conspiratorial, excited. The way she used to sound when she'd call me with gossip or when she'd plan surprise weekend trips. Except I was standing in our foyer, and she clearly wasn't talking to me. "Derek, I'm serious," she said into the phone. "He has no idea." I froze at the bottom of the stairs. My forensic training kicked in automatically. Don't react, don't move, observe and record everything. 20 years of listening to executives confess to embezzlement had taught me the value of staying invisible when people reveal secrets. "I've been moving small amounts for months now," Victoria continued. "By the time he notices anything, we'll be long gone." The words hit me like physical blows. Moving money, small amounts, long gone. "The accounts are structured perfectly," she went on. "Everything's in my name but tied to his assets. When the final transfer's complete, he'll be on the hook for all of it." I pressed my back against the wall, heart hammering. Accounts, assets, transfers. This wasn't an affair. This was something worse. "Yes, baby. I know it's risky, but I've been so careful," she continued, her voice turning softer. "The shell company, the credit cards, the offshore accounts, it's all documented as his business dealings. Shell company, credit cards, offshore accounts, 20 years of investigating financial fraud, and my wife was describing textbook identity theft and money laundering, using my name, my assets. "I love you too," she said tenderly. "Just 8 more weeks, then we disappear, and Daniel gets to explain everything to the IRS." She laughed. Actually laughed. "See you Thursday at the usual place," she concluded. I heard a kiss blown into the phone. I stood paralyzed for 30 seconds. My training screamed at me to keep listening, but my emotions were a hurricane of shock and rage. I backed out quietly, got in my car, and drove to a coffee shop 3 miles away. I ordered black coffee and sat down with my laptop. I didn't call a lawyer, didn't call a friend, didn't break down. Instead, I opened a new Excel file and titled it Investigation v. Mercer. I began listing everything I knew. Victoria had been moving money. Someone named Derek. Multiple accounts. A shell company. 8 weeks timeline. I saved the file, encrypted it, backed it up to 3 secure locations. Then I went home, kissed Victoria hello, and asked about her day. That was the last genuine conversation we ever had. Everything after was performance. Her playing the loving wife, me playing the fool, except I wasn't a fool anymore. I was a forensic accountant with a target. Over the next 14 days, I conducted the most important investigation of my career. I did it in fragments, an hour before Victoria woke up, lunch breaks at work, late nights claiming I was on complex cases. I accessed every financial account we shared, pulling transaction histories going back 12 months. The picture that emerged was devastating and brilliant in its viciousness. First, the credit cards. 3 opened in my name over 6 months, using my SSN and forged signatures. I found the applications. Victoria had somehow obtained my signature specimens from old tax returns and traced them perfectly. Total charges, $87,000. Luxury handbags, jewelry, cash advances, all categorized as business expenses or charitable contributions in our household tracking app. Second, the shell company, Ashford Consulting LLC, registered in Delaware 8 months ago, listing me as principal and sole owner. Victoria had been funneling money from our joint Vanguard account, $3,000 to $5,000 every 2 weeks, always below the $10,000 reporting threshold. Over 8 months, $240,000. The company had no actual business, no revenue, nothing. Just a vehicle for moving money. Third, the home equity line of credit. Opened 8 months ago, supposedly for home renovations we'd discussed. Victoria had set up automatic transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Another $150,000 moved in carefully structured amounts. Fourth, the tax fraud. Amended returns filed electronically claiming business losses for Ashford Consulting, reducing our tax burden by $35,000. But the IRS would eventually audit, and I, as the listed owner, would face penalties, interest, and potential criminal charges. I sat in my home office at 2 a.m., staring at the complete picture. Total theft, nearly $500,000. Total debt she'd saddled me with, $87,000. Potential legal exposure, criminal fraud charges that could end my career and put me in prison. I researched Derek Miller, found 3 aliases, fraud investigations in Nevada, Arizona, and Florida. Each time, Derek had convinced wealthy women to invest in opportunities that vanished. He'd never been prosecuted, always settled civilly and moved on. He's a professional con artist who spotted Victoria at a charity gala 8 months ago and saw the perfect mark. A bored housewife married to a man with substantial assets and high-profile career. But Victoria wasn't just a victim seduced by a con man. The scheme was too sophisticated, too deliberate. She'd studied my work, learned how to create the kind of financial trail that would implicate me. She'd planned to destroy me, professionally, financially, criminally. I realized the timeline. Victoria planned to complete final transfers and disappear with Derek just before credit card bills came due, before the IRS audit triggered, before I realized entire accounts had been drained. I would wake up one morning to find my wife gone, my money gone, and federal investigators at my door. The shaking started in my hands and spread through my whole body. Not fear, rage, pure, cold rage. My wife, the woman I'd trusted, supported, loved, had tried to obliterate me. She'd weaponized my own identity against me. But she'd made one catastrophic error. She'd tried to con a forensic accountant, a man who'd built his entire career on following money trails and documenting fraud. I created a master file, 127 pages of bank statements, wire transfers, forged documents, screenshots, IP logs, email evidence, everything time-stamped, cross-referenced, annotated. It's the most comprehensive fraud case file I'd ever assembled, and now I needed to decide how to use it. I could call the FBI immediately, have Victoria arrested, and let the legal system handle everything. Clean, professional, by the book. Or I could be more strategic. Victoria thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She thought she was the hunter and I was the prey. She thought she'd outmaneuvered the man who'd spent 20 years catching people exactly like her. She was wrong on every count. I had all the evidence I needed to send Victoria to prison, but evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed her to know, really know, that I'd beaten her at her own game. I needed her to see it coming just before it was too late to stop. And for that, I needed Derek Miller to betray her first. Poetic, right? The con artist's girlfriend, destroyed by her own con artist boyfriend's testimony. The plan crystallized in my mind as I watched dawn break through the office window. In 3 hours, Victoria would wake up, make coffee, and ask about my day with that same loving smile she'd been using while planning my destruction. I was going to let her keep believing she was winning, right up until the moment I destroyed her completely. Victoria had taught me that some people see kindness as weakness, trust as opportunity, and love as leverage. I was about to teach her that consequences are inevitable. The ledger was about to balance. I moved like a chess grandmaster playing against someone who didn't even know the game had started. My first call was to Margaret Scott, my attorney. We'd worked together for 6 years. She'd handled legal aspects of several major fraud cases. I sent her the entire case file with a simple message: emergency, review immediately, we'll call in 1 hour. Margaret called back in 40 minutes. "Jesus Christ, Daniel, this is airtight," she said immediately. "Wire fraud, identity theft, tax fraud, conspiracy. Victoria's looking at 10 to 15 years minimum if convicted." "I know," I replied. "I need divorce papers prepared immediately, and I need asset protection strategies." "Already working on it," she assured me. "Grounds of fraud and financial infidelity. I can have preliminary papers ready by tomorrow afternoon. How much money are we talking about in vulnerable accounts?" "About $320,000 in accounts she can access," I answered. "The rest is in retirement funds or business accounts she doesn't know about. We'll get an emergency court order to freeze the joint accounts," she said. "Once she's arrested, everything becomes evidence anyway." Next, Agent Sarah Green at FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Sarah and I had collaborated on 4 major cases over 3 years. She knew my work, trusted my analysis, understood exactly how thorough my investigations were. "Daniel? What's wrong?" "You sound like hell," she said when she answered. "I need to report multiple federal crimes, Sarah," I explained. "I'm sending you a case file right now." "Who's the target?" she asked. "My wife." Silence. Then, "Send me everything. I'll review it immediately." 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "Daniel, I've been doing this for 12 years, she said. "This is the most comprehensive financial fraud case file I've ever seen. How long did this take you?" 2 weeks, I answered. 2 weeks? She responded incredulously. "Most cases this complex take our team 6 months to develop. Your wife picked the wrong husband to steal from. Can you move on it?" I asked. "We can move immediately," she confirmed. "Federal warrants, asset seizure, the full package. When do you want us to execute?" 1 week, I replied. "I need time to protect myself legally and set up additional security measures." "What kind of additional security measures?" she inquired. "I'm going to flip Derek Miller first," I explained. "Daniel," she started. "Sarah, trust me," I interrupted. "Derek's the weak link. If I can get him to cooperate before Victoria even knows she's caught, the case becomes unbeatable." My boldest move, I contacted Derek directly. Using a burner phone purchased with cash, I called Derek's number from Victoria's phone records. When he answered, I disguised my voice slightly, deeper, more casual. "Derek Miller?" I said. "Yeah, who is this?" he responded suspiciously. "Someone who knows what you and Victoria are planning," I replied. "I don't know what you're talking about," he protested. "Ashford Consulting LLC, Cayman Islands accounts, $475,000 in stolen funds, the amended tax returns. Should I continue?" I listed methodically. Derek's breathing changed immediately. "Who the f*** is this?" he demanded. "Meet me tomorrow. 3 p.m. Riverside Park, East Bench near the fountain. Come alone," I instructed. I hung up before he could refuse. The next afternoon, I sat on that bench wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. Derek arrived at 3:05, nervous energy radiating as he looked around the park. I removed my sunglasses when he was 10 feet away. "Derek Miller, meet Daniel Mercer, Victoria's husband," I announced. Derek went white, took a step backward, clearly considering running. I stopped him with 8 words. "FBI agents are watching us right now. Don't run." It was a bluff, but Derek had no way of knowing that. I handed him a manila folder containing copies of every piece of evidence. "I've already turned this over to the FBI," I explained calmly. "Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit financial crimes. You're looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison." Derek opened the folder with shaking hands, flipping through page after page of documented evidence. Bank statements, wire transfers, forged documents, photos of him with Victoria. "This is impossible. How did you—" he stammered. "I'm a forensic accountant, Derek," I interrupted. "Catching financial criminals is what I do for a living. You tried to frame me for crimes I investigate professionally." "What do you want?" he asked desperately. "I want Victoria to pay for what she's done," I stated. "You're going to help me make that happen." "Why would I do that?" he challenged. "Because if you cooperate with the FBI, tell them everything about how Victoria orchestrated this scheme, testify against her in court, the prosecution might go easy on you," I explained. "Maybe 5 to 7 years instead of 15. Derek looked up. "And if I don't?" he asked. "Then I'll make sure you get the maximum sentence," I replied coldly. "I'll testify personally about your history of financial fraud, about how you manipulated my wife, about how you tried to destroy an innocent man's life. Federal prosecutors love me, Derek. My testimony will bury you." Derek stared at me for a long moment, calculating, weighing options, realizing he had no good choices left. "She's the one who planned all this, you know," he said finally. "The offshore accounts, the shell company, the fake tax returns. That was all Victoria." "I know," I replied. "That's why she's going to get the longer sentence." "Okay, I'll cooperate," he agreed. I stood and walked away, leaving Derek sitting on that bench, finally understanding that his life as he knew it was over. 1 week later, everything came together like a symphony of justice. I left work early Tuesday and parked across from our house. At 4:15 p.m., 2 FBI vehicles pulled up. 6 agents got out, moving with calm efficiency. They knocked. Victoria answered, smiling, probably expecting a delivery. "Victoria Mercer?" the lead agent asked. "Yes," she replied cheerfully. "FBI, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes," he announced. The smile vanished. "What? No, there's some mistake," she protested. That's when she saw me. Standing across the street, leaning against my car, arms crossed, watching. "Daniel, help me, please!" she screamed. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched as they loaded her into the vehicle and drove away. The trial was swift. Derek testified completely. My documentation was flawless. Victoria was convicted on all counts. Sentencing, 12 years federal prison. Victoria's sentencing hearing lasted 40 minutes. The judge called her actions calculated, cruel, and predatory. I sat in the gallery and watched her cry. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication. Just nothing. She'd tried to destroy me. I'd simply documented the truth. That's not revenge. That's consequences. 6 months after Victoria's sentencing, I narrate my new life from my downtown condo. I sold the colonial house within 3 weeks of the divorce finalizing. Couldn't stand being in those rooms where Victoria had smiled at me while planning my destruction. I bought a modern downtown condo with floor-to-ceiling windows and clean lines. No memories. Fresh start. My career is stronger than ever. Word spread quietly in professional circles about what happened. Not the details, but the broad strokes. Daniel's wife tried to frame him for fraud, and he outmaneuvered her so completely that she's serving 12 years. Clients started calling it the Mercer defense, the idea that you don't just protect yourself from fraud, you document so thoroughly that the perpetrator hangs themselves. My consulting fees increased by 40%. I still work 60-hour weeks, but now come home to silence instead of lies. I've started dating casually, nothing serious. I'm not ready to trust someone with my life again. Maybe I never will be. I'm okay with that. Victoria is in FCI Danbury, a federal prison in Connecticut. Derek is in Fort Dix in New Jersey. He got his 7-year deal for cooperation. They'll never see each other again. Sarah Green occasionally sends me updates, though I never ask for them. Victoria's letters continue arriving, now at my attorney's office. I've never read one. Margaret scans them, finds nothing legally relevant, and files them away. Apparently, Victoria's mother visited her once, then never returned. Her father refuses all contact. She has no one. People ask if I feel guilty. Colleagues, my attorney, even my mother. Don't you feel bad? She's your wife. 12 years is a long time, they say. My answer is always the same. She tried to destroy my life, frame me for crimes, steal everything I built. She made calculated choices every day for 8 months. The only thing I did was document the truth and protect myself. Some people call it revenge. I call it consequences, the natural result of Victoria's actions. She committed fraud. She's in prison for fraud. Simple arithmetic. Lessons learned. Trust, but verify. Love doesn't mean blind faith. The person sleeping next to you can be your greatest enemy. Protect your identity, monitor your accounts, never assume you're too smart to be conned. And most importantly, if someone betrays you, protect yourself first. Be strategic. Be thorough. Make sure they can't hurt anyone else. I end my narration sitting in my condo, looking out at city lights. I'm 41 years old, divorced, and at peace. I don't think about Victoria. Don't wonder how she's doing. Don't consider forgiveness. She made her choices. Now she's living with them. I pour myself a glass of bourbon, something I've started doing on Friday nights, and think about the forensic accountant's creed I learned 20 years ago. Numbers don't lie. People do. Your job is to follow the numbers until the truth becomes undeniable. I followed the numbers. The truth became undeniable. Victoria went to prison. The ledger balanced. If you're reading this and someone has betrayed you, remember, justice isn't always swift, but when it's thorough, it's permanent. Document everything. Protect yourself first. And never let guilt keep you from holding someone accountable for trying to destroy you. Victoria taught me that some people see kindness as weakness, trust as opportunity, and love as leverage. I taught her that consequences are inevitable. I sleep soundly every night. I hope she doesn't. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. They say the worst betrayals come from the people you trust most. I used to think that was dramatic, paranoid even. I thought loyalty was earned through years of partnership, through raising kids together, through building a life brick by brick. I was wrong. The worst betrayals don't announce themselves. They hide behind late meetings and business trips and I love you texts sent between lies. My name is Andrew Carson. I'm 42 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I watched my 19-year-old son hold a man against a hotel lobby wall while I made sure that man would never forget what happens when you touch another man's wife. 22 years ago, I met Christine Williams in the most unremarkable place imaginable, a fluorescent-lit classroom at the local community college. I was Andrew Carson, 20 years old, hauling boxes in a warehouse during the day and chasing an accounting degree at night. She was 18, working retail with dreams bigger than her paycheck, studying hospitality management between double shifts. We sat beside each other by pure chance that first night. I remember her chewing the end of her pen during lectures, scribbling notes in handwriting so neat it looked like calligraphy. When she asked to borrow my calculator, something clicked. Two hungry kids with calloused hands and ambitious hearts, grinding through night classes while our friends were out partying. 3 months later, we were inseparable. 3 years after that, we married in a cheap community hall with friends, family, and promises we meant with every fiber of our being. The wedding photos show two kids who looked like they could conquer the world together. Maybe we could have. At 25, Christine got pregnant with Ethan. Money was brutally tight. I mean, choosing between groceries and gas money tight. I worked doubles at the warehouse while Christine stayed home for 6 months before financial reality forced her back to work. We took turns being exhausted, took turns holding it together, took turns believing this struggle was temporary. When Ethan was 3, Maya arrived, and our family felt complete. 4 people crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment, sharing 1 bathroom and dreams that seemed too big for our circumstances. But we were solid. We were happy. We were the kind of couple other people looked at and thought, they've got something real. I climbed from warehouse supervisor to operations director at a logistics firm over the next 15 years, earning my way to $95,000 annually. Christine rose from front desk clerk to senior marketing manager at a luxury hotel chain, pulling in $87,000. We bought a house, nothing fancy, but ours. We saved for the kids' college funds. We took beach vacations and camping trips, nothing glamorous, but filled with laughter and inside jokes and the comfortable rhythm of people who genuinely liked each other. I coached Ethan's basketball team. Christine cheered from the stands, sometimes still in her work clothes, having rushed from the hotel to make tip-off. Maya excelled in debate club, and we both sat in those school auditoriums, bursting with pride as our daughter systematically demolished opposing arguments. We were solid, happy, the kind of family people envied without knowing they envied us. Then, 2 years ago, Christine's promotion changed everything. Senior marketing manager meant more responsibility, bigger territory, and travel, 3 to 4 nights monthly for client meetings and property tours. When she told me about the offer, I kissed her forehead and said, "I'm proud of you. You earned this." I picked up the slack at home without complaint, because that's what partners do. That's what love looks like in real life. Except now, sitting at my kitchen table at 2 a.m., I realize I can't remember the last time Christine called during a trip. Those long, rambling, 30-minute conversations about her day, my day, the kids' latest achievements. They became 10-minute check-ins, then 5-minute texts. Busy day, exhausted, love you, good night. And yesterday, Maya asked something that's been eating at me ever since. "Dad, why does Mom smile at her phone like that?" she wondered aloud. "Different. Not like when she texts you." I stare at my sleeping wife beside me. After 20 years of marriage, I suddenly realize I have no idea who she's texting at midnight when she thinks I'm asleep. Over the following 3 weeks, I became a detective in my own marriage. I didn't want to be. Every observation felt like a betrayal of 20 years of trust. But I couldn't unsee what Maya had pointed out. Once you notice the smile, you can't unnotice it. Christine's phone became face down constantly. Always. On the kitchen counter, the nightstand, the coffee table, always face down like she was hiding something. The password had changed 2 months ago, something she mentioned casually. "Work security requirements, you know how it is," she had explained when I noticed. I didn't question it then. Why would I? New dresses appeared in the closet, elegant, expensive pieces that cost more than her usual purchases. Nothing like what she wore to our family dinners or Maya's debate tournaments. There was a new perfume, too, something floral and unfamiliar that replaced the vanilla scent I'd been buying her for birthdays and Christmas for years. She started going to the gym at 5 a.m., returning 90 minutes later with perfect makeup already applied. When I asked about it, she said, "I feel better starting the day put together. Professional image, you know." It made sense. Everything she said made sense individually. But together, the changes painted a picture I didn't want to see. The calls during business trips virtually disappeared. Now it was just texts, brief, functional, devoid of the warmth that used to fill our phone conversations. She'd text me schedules and logistics. "Landing at 3, meetings until 8, call you tomorrow morning." When she was home, she was physically present but mentally elsewhere. Scrolling, typing, smiling at messages she quickly swiped away when I entered the room. One evening over dinner, I mentioned an idea that had been forming. "I'm thinking about surprising you on your next trip," I suggested casually. "Maybe taking the kids to visit, making it a family weekend in whatever city you're in." Christine's face flashed pure panic before she recovered, forced a smile. "That's sweet, honey, but these trips are wall-to-wall meetings," she replied quickly. "I'd barely see you. Let's plan something special when I'm home instead." The response was logical, reasonable, but that split second of fear in her eyes wasn't logical at all. I lay in bed that night, running through possibilities. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe the promotion really was this demanding. Maybe I was creating problems where none existed because I was insecure about her success, threatened by her professional growth. Maybe I was the problem. Then Christine's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She was asleep, breathing deeply beside me, exhausted from another long day of meetings. My hand hovered over the device. I had never, not once in 20 years, violated her privacy. We'd built our marriage on trust, respect, and the assumption that we were on the same team. But my hand was already moving. I picked up the phone. The screen showed a notification. "Richard, can't wait for Chicago. Just us, finally." Richard Thornton, her boss, the VP of marketing with the too-white smile and wandering eyes I'd met once at a holiday party 2 years ago. He'd made some comment about Christine being lucky to have such a supportive husband, while his gaze lingered too long on her dress. I'd dismissed it then as typical corporate sliminess. My blood turned to ice. I memorized every word of that message before the screen went dark. I set the phone down exactly as I found it, my hands shaking. I didn't sleep. By dawn, I'd decided. Christine's Chicago trip was in 5 days. 4 days, 4 nights. "Big client presentation," she'd said. I was going to find out exactly what kind of presentation she was planning to give. The message had said, "Just us, finally." Finally. How long had this been happening? And what exactly happens in Chicago that requires privacy? I was about to find out, and I was taking my kids with me, partly as cover, partly because if my worst fears were confirmed, they deserved to know the truth about their mother. Thursday morning, Christine kissed everyone goodbye like she had dozens of times before. I watched her load her overnight bag, the one now packed with those new dresses and unfamiliar perfume, into her car. She looked beautiful, professional, happy, excited in a way she hadn't been about anything involving our family in months. I turned to Ethan and Maya after her taillights disappeared around the corner. "How do you two feel about a road trip?" I asked. Ethan, 19 and home from State University for winter break, exchanged glances with his 16-year-old sister. He'd grown into my height but inherited Christine's sharp intelligence, and those combination traits made him impossible to fool. "What kind of road trip, Dad?" he asked cautiously. "Chicago," I replied. "We'll surprise your mom. Drive up Friday, spend the weekend, maybe catch a show." Maya's eyes lit up immediately. She'd been begging us to take her to see Hamilton for months. But Ethan, 6'3" of muscle and basketball-honed instincts, studied my face with the intensity he usually reserved for analyzing opposing teams' defense strategies. "Dad, is everything okay?" he pressed. I forced what I hoped was a convincing smile. Everything's fine, I lied. I just miss your mom. Ethan didn't buy it. I could see the wheels turning behind his eyes, processing my body language, my tone, the fact that I'd never once in his memory planned a spontaneous romantic gesture. But he didn't argue. Smart kid. Friday morning, we loaded the car with weekend bags and road trip snacks. I called Christine as we pulled out of the driveway. Hey, babe, just checking in, I said when she answered. How's the trip going? Good, really good, she replied brightly. Busy, though. Meetings all day yesterday, more today. I'm exhausted. Her voice sounded normal, convincingly tired. She was an excellent liar. 20 years of marriage, and I'd never noticed how good she was at lying. Where are you staying again? I asked. The Regency downtown, she answered. Why? Just curious, I replied. Want to know where my beautiful wife is sleeping? The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Aw, that's sweet, she responded with what sounded like genuine affection. Miss you too, honey. Listen, I've got to run. Another meeting starting. Love you. Love you too, I managed. I typed the address into the Regency Hotel, Chicago. 320 miles, 7 hours. The first hour passed in silence, punctuated by Maya's playlist and the occasional direction from the Jeep. Then Maya broke the quiet. Dad, are we really just surprising Mom? She asked hesitantly. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What do you mean, sweetheart? I replied. You've been weird all week, she observed. Watching her. And Ethan's been watching you like you're about to explode or something. Ethan leaned forward from the back seat. Dad, he said firmly, tell us the truth. What's going on? I exhaled slowly, considering my options. I could lie, protect them, keep pretending everything was fine until we got to Chicago and saw whatever we were going to see. But they weren't children anymore. Ethan was an adult. Maya was old enough to understand how the world really worked. If Christine had destroyed our family, they deserved to know. They were going to see for themselves soon enough. I don't know, I admitted finally. Maybe nothing. But I need to see for myself. See what? Maya pressed. I didn't answer. The GPS showed 247 miles remaining. The rest of the drive was punctuated by gas station stops and fast food that tasted like cardboard. Ethan scrolled his phone with increasing tension, his jaw tight. Maya stared out the window, occasionally asking questions I couldn't answer. My mind ran through scenarios. Best case, I was paranoid. Christine was genuinely working. The text was misunderstood. Worst case, everything I'd built for 20 years was a carefully constructed lie. As Chicago's skyline appeared on the horizon, I realized I was hoping desperately for the best-case scenario. But I was prepared for the worst. We arrived at 4:30 p.m. The Regency Hotel towered above us, all marble and gold fixtures and crystal chandeliers. Valet parking. The kind of place that charges $18 for a cocktail and makes you feel underdressed in a suit. I walked through the revolving doors, Ethan and Maya flanking me like bodyguards. The lobby bustled with business travelers and tourists. I scanned the space methodically, looking for her. Then I saw her. Near the bar, Christine in a navy dress I'd never seen, hair styled professionally, heels that cost more than my monthly car payment. She looked stunning, confident, happy. And next to her stood Richard Thornton. Richard leaned close to my wife, laughing at something she'd just said. Not the polite corporate laughter of colleagues discussing quarterly projections. This was intimate, familiar. His hand rested on the small of her back like he'd done it 1,000 times before. There she is, I said, my voice barely recognizable. Ethan followed my gaze. Who's that guy with her? He asked. Her boss, I answered grimly. We watched from across the lobby. Christine touched Richard's arm while making a point, and he smiled. Not the professional courtesy smile you give colleagues, but something deeper. Something that made my stomach drop through the marble floor. Then Richard leaned in and kissed her. Not a peck on the cheek, not European air kiss professionalism. A real kiss. Her hand on his chest, his hand on her waist, lingering, practiced, familiar. Maya gasped. "Oh my God," she whispered. Ethan's whole body went rigid. "Dad," he started. But I was already moving across the marble floor, my footsteps silent beneath the ambient hotel music and conversation. Christine hadn't seen me yet. She was still smiling up at Richard, still touching him, completely unaware that her entire world was about to explode. I grabbed Richard's shoulder and spun him around. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I snarled. Richard's expensive cologne hit my nostrils, something woody and pretentious. His too-white smile faltered as he took in my face, my posture, the barely contained violence radiating from every muscle in my body. "Who the hell?" he began. My fist connected with his jaw. 20 years of loyalty, of picking up slack, of trusting, of believing in late meetings and client presentations channeled into that single punch. The crack of knuckles meeting bone echoed through the marble lobby like a gunshot. Richard staggered backward, blood immediately streaming from his mouth. Christine screamed, "Andrew?" But Ethan moved faster than his father. Basketball reflexes and 19 years of watching his dad treat his mom with absolute respect exploded into action. He grabbed Richard by his tailored lapels and slammed him against the marble wall, hard. Held him there with the strength of youth and rage while Richard struggled pathetically. "Don't move," Ethan growled, his voice barely recognizable, all traces of my college kid replaced by something primal and dangerous. I stepped forward, looking into Richard's eyes as fear replaced that smug confidence. "You thought you could touch my wife?" I asked coldly. "I didn't. It's not. We were just—" Richard stammered. My fist drove into his stomach with everything I had. Richard doubled over, gasping, but Ethan held him upright like a trophy on display. I grabbed Richard's collar, pulled him face to face until I could see the terror in his eyes. "How long?" I demanded. "Please, I can explain," he wheezed. My knee came up hard, straight between his legs. Richard's scream echoed through the marble lobby like a wounded animal. Guests froze mid-conversation. Phones emerged from pockets. Someone shouted for security. I didn't care. 20 years of marriage reduced to this moment. This pathetic man crumpled against a hotel wall. Ethan released Richard, who collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. But I wasn't done. My boot connected with his ribs once, twice, 3 times, each kick punctuated by images flooding my mind. Christine laughing with this man, texting this man, lying to my face for months while I cooked dinner and helped with homework and believed we were still a family. "Andrew, stop!" Christine was sobbing, grabbing my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. "Please, stop!" I shoved her off with enough force to send her stumbling backward in those new heels. Heels bought for this man, for these trips, for this life she'd been living behind my back. "Don't touch me," I spat. She caught herself against the bar, her perfectly applied makeup streaming down her face in black rivers. Hotel security rushed over. 3 men in blazers looking uncertain about confronting someone who'd just beaten a man half to death in their lobby. I held up my hands, stepping back from Richard's groaning form. "I'm done," I announced. Richard lay curled on the marble floor, bleeding from his mouth, whimpering from the groin injury that had reduced him from corporate executive to broken animal in 30 seconds. His expensive suit was scuffed with shoe prints and dust. A crowd had formed. 30, maybe 40 people with phones recording, whispering, staring. A woman covered her child's eyes. A businessman whispered something to his colleague about calling police. The bartender stood frozen with a drink shaker in his hand. I looked at all of them, then at Christine. Her eyes pleaded with me. Her hands reached out desperately. Her mouth formed words. "Andrew, please, I can explain. It's not what you think. It was a mistake," she babbled. "Don't," I said, my voice cutting through her pleading like glass. Don't lie to me anymore. It was a mistake. I never meant for this to happen. She continued desperately. You meant every second of it, I replied, my voice eerily calm now, cold as the marble beneath our feet. Every text, every trip, every time you kissed me goodbye and drove to him. You meant all of it. Andrew, she started again. We're done, I stated flatly. No, please, think about the kids, she begged. I glanced at Maya, who stood white-faced with tears streaming silently down her cheeks. At Ethan, whose fists were still clenched, trembling with adrenaline and betrayal. The kids just watched their mother destroy their family, I said coldly. You did that, not me. Security approached cautiously. Sir, we need you to leave the premises, one of them said. I nodded, looked down at Richard one final time, leaned close so only he could hear. If you ever come near my family again, I'll finish what I started. Do you understand me? I whispered. Richard nodded frantically, gasping. I straightened, looked at Christine one last time. 22 years of shared history, 2 children, a home, a life built on what I thought was mutual love and respect. All of it contaminated now, rotted from within by lies and hotel rooms and a broken man bleeding on marble floors. Don't call me, don't text me, don't come home, I said with finality. I turned to my children. Let's go, I said simply. I didn't sleep that night. At 6 a.m., my attorney Lisa Grant returned my emergency call from the hotel room. Andrew, I got your message, she said when I answered. Tell me everything. I did. The suspicions, the text message, the 7-hour drive, the hotel lobby, Richard's hands on my wife, the kiss, the violence, the witnesses, the videos that were probably already viral on social media. Jesus Christ, Lisa breathed. Okay, first question. Did you get arrested? No, I replied. Security just wanted us gone. We left immediately. Good, she responded. Second, you have witnesses to the infidelity? My children, I answered. And probably 50 strangers with cell phones. Even better, she said with satisfaction. Third, I assume you want full custody of Maya? Joint custody, I corrected. But I want the house, and I want Christine to understand that she destroyed this family, not me. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity still matters significantly for custody disputes and asset division, especially with witness testimony and video evidence, Lisa explained. I'll file papers today. You'll be served by Wednesday. Thank you, Lisa, I said. I hung up and stared at my children. Maya hadn't spoken since the hotel. Ethan kept clenching and unclenching his fists. We drove home in complete silence. 7 hours of processing what we'd witnessed, what it meant, what came next. At 7 a.m. the next morning, Christine appeared at our door. She must have driven through the night. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair unwashed, still wearing that navy dress from the hotel. She looked destroyed. I didn't care. I opened the door 6 inches. What? I said flatly. Andrew, please, she pleaded. Let me explain. No, I replied curtly. It was a mistake, she insisted. I never meant to hurt you or the kids. It just happened. It just happened for how long? I asked coldly. Weeks? Months? Christine's silence was the answer I expected and dreaded. 8 months, she finally whispered. It started 8 months ago. 8 months, 2/3 of a year, hundreds of lies. Thousands of text messages, dozens of business trips. 8 months of looking me in the eye every morning and pretending our marriage meant something. Get out, I ordered. Andrew, she started. You have 5 seconds before I call the police and tell them you're trespassing, I warned. This is my house too, she protested. Not anymore, I corrected her. My attorney filed papers yesterday. You'll get served next week. Until then, you're not welcome here. You can't keep me from my children, she cried. I'm not keeping you from anyone, I replied. They can decide if they want to see you. Ethan already decided. He told me this morning he's done with you. Maya won't even say your name. Christine crumbled, sinking to her knees on our porch like her strings had been cut. Please, she sobbed. I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll never see Richard again. Please don't take my family away. I looked down at her. This woman I'd met 22 years ago in a community college classroom. The woman I'd built a life with. The woman I'd trusted with everything. You're never going to see Richard again anyway, I informed her coldly. His wife is filing for divorce too. And yes, he was married. 3 kids. Did you know that? Christine's face went pale as marble. Didn't think so, I continued. You destroyed 2 families, Christine. Congratulations. I closed the door, locked it. She pounded on it for 5 minutes, pleading, sobbing, promising things she should have thought about 8 months ago. Then her car started, and she was gone. Over the next month, the dominoes fell with surgical precision. Day 3. Christine was placed on administrative leave pending investigation into workplace conduct violations. Day 5. Richard was fired. Company policy strictly prohibited relationships between supervisors and subordinates. The hotel chain couldn't risk the liability. Day 7. Richard's wife filed for divorce, taking their house and primary custody of their children. Day 12. Christine was terminated officially for violating ethics policies. Day 18. Maya agreed to meet Christine for coffee. It lasted 12 minutes. Maya came home, went to her room, and emerged 3 hours later with red eyes. I'm done with her, Dad, she announced quietly. She's not my mom anymore. Day 24. Ethan blocked Christine's number entirely. Day 30. The 3 of us started family therapy. We were broken, but we were healing. Together. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. I signed them in Lisa's office, my children beside me. When the pen lifted from paper, 20 years of marriage officially ended. What came next wasn't revenge. It was survival. 3 months after the hotel lobby, I sit in my backyard at dusk, watching the sun paint the sky orange and purple. The divorce was finalized last week with terms more favorable than I'd expected. I kept the house. We split savings 50-50. Joint custody of Maya, though at 16, Maya exercised her legal right to choose where she lives. She chose me. Christine gets visitation every other weekend. Christine hasn't shown up once. Ethan hasn't spoken to his mother since Chicago. When I asked if he wanted to reach out, he said simply, "She made her choice. I'm making mine." Maya tried harder than anyone should have to. 3 coffee meetings, 2 lunches, 1 attempt at family therapy that ended with Maya walking out after 15 minutes. She keeps saying it was a mistake, Maya told me afterward. But mistakes are accidents. She chose him, again and again, for 8 months. That's not a mistake, Dad. That's a decision. I couldn't argue with that logic. Christine is working now, administrative assistant at a small corporate office. $42,000 salary, less than half what she made before. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment across town. I ran into her once at the grocery store. She looked thin, tired, hollow. She tried to talk to me. I nodded politely and walked away. There's nothing left to say. Richard fared worse. His divorce cost him everything: house, savings, retirement fund. His kids won't speak to him. He's working in sales now, making a fraction of his VP salary. LinkedIn shows he moved 2 states away. I Googled him once out of morbid curiosity, then never again. Richard isn't worth the mental space. As for me, some days are better than others. I'm in therapy, individual sessions and family sessions with the kids. We're processing, healing, learning to trust again slowly. I went on 1 date 3 weeks ago, dinner with a friend of a coworker. It was nice. Conversation, laughter, normalcy. But when she texted asking for a second date, I realized I wasn't ready. Maybe in 6 months. Maybe in a year. Maya is thriving. She won a debate tournament last month, and I sat in the audience watching her systematically destroy opposing arguments with precision and confidence. She's resilient, strong, she'll be okay. Ethan calls twice a week from university. We talk about basketball, classes, life, normal father-son things. The wound is healing, though the scar remains. I'm 42 years old, divorced, single father, and I'm okay. My son stood beside me that day in Chicago. My daughter saw the truth, and we walked away from the lies together. Christine made her choices. So did I. I chose my kids, my integrity, my self-respect, and I'd make that choice again, every single time.